This is Ray Hanania on politics. And my guest is a young man who's running in the 6th Congressional District in the Democratic primary for Congress against incumbent Sean Kasten, a Democrat, somebody that nobody really likes in the Democratic Party that I know. He's a nice guy, and he promises everything, and he hasn't delivered anything. And I think Sean Kasten is vulnerable. And I think if he can get beat in the Democratic primary, I think that's the one place where he can get beat. And I'm talking with somebody who has a really fascinating background and who's dedicated himself to running against Casten and defeating him in the March 2026 primary. Ruzevich. Joey Ruzovich. I got to get used to that. Joey, welcome to the program.
Ray, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan.
Uh, and what makes somebody want to get involved in the mud and mess of politics? What got you? What hit you one day and said, "Hey, I got to bring change. I got to do something better." What was it? Was there something that said you got to run for Congress in the 6th district against Caston?
Yeah, there was. The motivating event was on my birthday in 2024, February 25th, 2024. That was the day that Aaron Bushnell, the 25-year-old United States airman,
Oh
stood in front
yeah,
of the Israeli consulate, poured gasoline over his head, and lit himself on fire as he
yeah,
screamed "Free Palestine" until he took his
yeah,
last breath. So that was a gut-wrenching moment for me. I turned to myself and I asked, what am I doing to try to stop this atrocity? I had joined protests in downtown Chicago with tens of thousands of other people. I had written and tried to contact my congressman, but we just get ignored. And so I realized that the only way to actually enact change is to hold a position of power, such as a federal congressman. And when I looked at the current congressman, Sean Kasten, I recognized that he was not representing the will of the base. We have the largest Palestinian population outside of Palestine itself residing in Illinois' District 6 in a place called Little Palestine, Bridgeview,
right.
Illinois, Orland Park, Payless Park, very heavy Muslim Arab community. And they've been trying to contact Sean. They've been reaching out, trying to get meetings, and he just ignores them.
Yeah,
So it's been, one of the greatest moral atrocities of my lifetime, certainly. And I can't just sit by and allow it to happen. Of course, America's also in an economic crisis as well, and Sean's not addressing that either. My entire generation has been priced out of home ownership. Starting a family, having a one-income household. That American dream that my grandparents came to this country for is now gone.
Well,
So
well, obviously, a lot of these issues have built up in you, but I want to go back to the Palestinian issue. Obviously, it's an important issue because you're right. The old third district had the largest population of Palestinian voters and Arab and Muslim, and more than half of them are actually Christian, Arabs that live in that district. And then when Marie Newman got elected in that district, the Democrats stepped in under Pritzker and divided it into 5 separate districts and put a
yes,
large chunk of it in the 6th district, which is a little of Cook County and I think a little of DuPage County, correct, in the west
correct,
suburbs.
correct.
And so Palestine is a big issue there, but that's not the biggest issue. There's so many issues in this district, and he doesn't seem like this big fight with Trump and the Republicans on one side and the Democrats on the other side. I keep asking myself, where's Sean Kasten? What is he doing? And he's
Yeah.
not doing anything. It's like he ducked. He's ducking and saying, well, when it's over, maybe I'll just stand up and sweep up the pieces.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard from the constituents is that, hey, Sean's a nice guy, but he's a do-nothing Democrat. He's just a
Right.
cog in the machine. He's not interested in seeking leadership, or challenging leadership. And those are the two reasons why we had, the situation that we have now, where we have to have a No Kings protest with millions of people coming out demanding some type of opposition other than just strongly worded letters. So for Sean to, not challenge the leadership in the past, past when the Democrats were in power or tried to be a strong voice of opposition in this moment shows his weak leadership. And we need somebody who's willing to go against the Democratic Party itself in order to pass legislation that benefits the average American, not just the corporate donors that control the DNC.
So, and I understand, just going back to foreign policy just for a minute, but I do want to talk about some of these
Sure.
domestic issues. For most of the voters, they do care about what's happening in the Middle East, but they got so many other problems that are being caused by the current administration.
Yeah.
You supported, of course, the ceasefire and the end of the conflict. You support, I understand, independent Palestinian state where Palestinians would have a right to live without being targeted.
Yep.
But you're not against Israel and Jews. You're against the Israeli government, correct?
Of course.
The
I'm against.
Netanyahu government, because people that are going to attack you are going to confuse that and say, "Oh, you criticize Netanyahu, you're criticizing Jews." That's not the
Yeah,
case,
that's been one of the biggest conflations. Correct. Yeah. I one of the most anti-Semitic things that has been happening recently is the conflation of Zionism and Judaism.
right?
That every Jew in America or around the world agrees with what the country of Israel and the Benjamin Netanyahu government is doing, and that is not the case. I've talked to several Jewish organizations and a lot of Jewish people that do not agree and do not want to be tied to the state of Israel. So my contention is with the political party and organization that is Zionism, which is a land grab, essentially. It's not to do with a religion. There are plenty of Christian Arabs and Christian Palestinians that still live in the area. And as you mentioned, Christian Palestinians and Christian Arabs in the district. It really has nothing to do with religion. It's a political fight.
And you support a two-state solution? Just to be
So
clear, what's your position on resolving this conflict? What would be ideally, if you could support something, what would it be?
ideally, it would be a one-state solution that has equal rights for everybody in that state. Right now, there is no equal rights for Palestinians or Muslims in the state of Israel. So if it is one state, it must be equal rights. I do think that we need to have some type of right to return for the land that has been stolen since 1948. I'm not against a two-state solution. That's much further down the road. Right now, after the ceasefire has happened, we need to have some type of political organization that comes forward in Gaza and in the West Bank to have some self-determination. Hamas has said that they're uninterested in being the governing body, and they put forth a list of names that they would accept. One of those names was a part of the prisoner transfer. I forget the name right now, but he was
But
not released. Uh,
Marwan Barghouti, I think.
yes,
Yes,
Barghouti,
Marwan. He's
exactly.
a good
Very,
guy.
yes, very
Right,
highly respected political
right.
leader, and this is exactly the point that Israel is working against peace and against self-determination government in Palestine because Barghouti is a very popular political leader, and he would be able to unite the Palestinians and have that success.
And tell us about yourself a little bit. I mean, obviously, are you Middle Eastern at all, or do you have any Middle Eastern blood? Sometimes, you got to, it sounds like a Eastern European name,
It
but
is.
you could
Yeah.
have a mom who might be Middle Eastern. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself so
Sure.
we can
So the
clear
last
that up.
name, yeah, the last name Ruzevich is Croatian. My grandfather was a Croatian immigrant. He's 100% Croatian. He was married to an Irish woman, 100% Irish. So my dad's 50-50 on that side. And then my mom is actually 100% Polish. So I don't have any Middle Eastern blood in me. However, the Irish blood in me is a
Yeah.
tie to the Middle East. So
Yes. The
Casten,
Irish have been big supporters of
big,
Palestinian rights. They were the first country to actually recognize Palestinian rights. And Palestinian rights, for those people who are listening, it's not being about anti-Israel. It's about Christians and Muslims, Muslims and Christians, Christian
yes.
Palestinians like myself. My mother's from Bethlehem. I always like to tell people my mom's from Bethlehem. Jesus is my cousin. So quit criticizing me.
Oh,
So,
I love
but
it.
they
Yeah, it's also
politicize.
the sorry if you don't
No,
mind.
go
It's
ahead.
also
Yeah,
with the Irish tie, it's also the fact that the exact same paramilitary group that
right.
subjugated and
Yeah,
starved and killed the Irish
yes,
civilians, named the
yeah,
Black and Tans, Once the Irish won their freedom in the early 1920s, those same black and tan soldiers were then moved by the British government to what was called Mandatory Palestine to do the same thing to those
Right.
civilians over there. And it's, a desire to try to weaken morale for the fight for independence. So for Sean Kasten, who's also an Irishman, to not know this history or to discard
Right.
it is just more appalling.
So you have a potentially large base: Poles, Irish, Serbian, and of course Arabs and Muslims. And
Yep.
you're Christian or Muslim?
I was raised Irish Catholic.
Irish Catholic. All right. There's a
Yep,
big base of vote support out there.
there
And
is.
if and how is the campaign going when you go out in the district, in the new sixth district that Casten has been representing? I think now for 2 years. He ran against Marie Newman 2 years ago, I think, and
4 years
and
ago, he ran
four
against
years ago.
Manor Ahmad 2 years ago.
Yes, Manure was 2 years ago. Manure was a phenomenal candidate,
Yes.
also. But when you are knocking on doors and talking with voters in the sixth district, what's the one thing that you hear them say they need that they're not getting?
They need a fighter. They need somebody that is going to deliver for the kitchen table issues. Electricity prices across the state of Illinois have gone through the roof because of all the data centers. I'm a software engineer. I understand not only that the creation of large language models is expensive and impacts the community, but then the technology itself is being deployed to take away our jobs and to squeeze the middle class for every dollar that we have. So they're concerned about the price of just living. My entire generation is concerned about paying 60% of their income in rent and never being able to own a home. If you talk to the older generation, they're worried about tyranny and the sliding away from democracy. But again, we get to this point because we have weak leaders in the Democratic Party. So ultimately, people want somebody that's going to be able to stand up, who's uncorruptible as well, who's unwilling to accept any APAC money, any corporate PAC money, unwilling to bend the knee to the leadership in the party, and is really just interested in representing the base. That's what I've
Yeah,
heard the most.
I like Majority Taylor Greene, who a Republican congresswoman who says that we should end all foreign tied money, and
Yeah,
that any money like paying these people on Facebook $7,000 per post
yeah.
without requiring any
Disclosure.
disclosure on who
Yep.
they are just to promote Israel. To me, that sounds like a foreign country coming in and influencing our election. We would never tolerate that under any other circumstance except Israeli intervention in the American system. And it's really kind of sad. And Illinois is such a big Democratic state. The Republican Party in Illinois is just Northern Illinois is just decimated. They're the worst leaders. There are a few good ones, like Ken Duffy, who I met recently in Orland Township, great guy. But the people around him, Keith Peacock, the mayor of Orland Park,
I
horrible
remember.
guy.
Yep.
The committee woman, Cindy Katsenis, the Cook County Commissioner, Sean Morrison. These are not people that have been fighting for what the region needs,
Yeah,
and it's fallen into the lap of Democrats. And you're running as a Democrat, but it's very hard to beat the machine. How do
of
you
course.
beat someone like Casten, who relies on not being controversial, don't say anything that might upset people, don't do anything that might require some controversy? How do you fit in and change that in the eyes of voters to see you as someone who would really bring a difference to make their lives better?
Yeah, you offer them a better vision for the future and a plan to implement it. So we have the money to build out the country, to invest in infrastructure, into education, into building more affordable housing. We're just spending all of that money on war,
Well,
and we don't have leadership that's willing to say this and try to redirect it. The Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in almost 6 years, and their budget is upwards of $1 trillion. Well, we need to know exactly what that money is being spent on. I'm not against, spending on defense, of course, but $1 trillion is a lot of money, and we need to know exactly where it's going because it only costs about $21 billion per year to offer free food, free lunches to all American students. So where are we currently spending this money? Offer the voters an opportunity to have somebody with a vision, with a plan to implement it. And then as far as the machine goes, there's very low voter turnout in Cook County, very strong favorability for Sean in DuPage County. So we're going to chip away at his support in DuPage and really drive out the vote in Cook County, especially with the youth. You see campaigns like Zohran Mamdani getting record turnout for 18 to
Phenomenal
35
guy.
year
Love
olds.
the guy. He's
Yeah,
doing really good.
absolutely. And so it's possible people, the young generation is willing to go out and be civically active if you offer them a candidate that is worth supporting. And
So
I
you
hope
go
to
to
do that.
and you go to the voters and you offer them a broad, I'm going to work with you approach, or do you
Yeah,
offer them specific issues like solutions? How do you deal with the economy? How do you deal with increased property taxes?
sure.
Jobs, things like that. How would you deal with that?
Yeah, so as far as the general economy goes, we've seen my plan. I'll just say instead of going into why we got here, the plan is to break up companies that are monopolies and oligarchies. We have antitrust laws on the books right now that we can apply, and we need to write new legislation to tackle the monopolies in the tech sector because
You're not talking about like little businesses in our community, right?
Oh no,
You're not right,
the little businesses are being blocked out of the larger market by these monopolies. It's the
right.
barrier to entry is much higher for small businesses such as myself. I worked for Silicon Valley and then I opened up my own small app development studio and I see how quickly I'm boxed out of the market because I don't have the same resources as these major companies do.
The wealthy help the wealthy. The
They
rich help
absolutely
the
do.
rich. And nobody's richer than a member of Congress and the U.S. Senate. They have the
Yeah.
largest collection of wealthy people, people that go in with just a little bit of money and come out multimillionaires. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. We're
Yeah.
on the line talking with Joey Ruzovich, who is running as a Democrat in the 6th Congressional District in the March 2026 Democratic primary, challenging the incumbent, who he's a nice guy, but he hasn't done anything. The 6th district should be a powerful district, and he's not doing what he needs to do. Joey Ruzevich wants to change that. What are some of the other issues? I know I wanted to keep you at about 20 minutes, Joe. I know you got a
Sure.
big schedule, and you've been getting a great response from people out there in the district. Tell us what some of the other issues are that when you talk to people, when they say, "What are you going to do for us?"
Sure. So first and foremost, technology does affect all of our lives. And I think a big thing that we can do right away is with social media regulation and the recommendation algorithms that are driving all of the interactions that we have, all of the content that we have. We can regulate these companies under the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, as platforms, as utilities, potentially, rather than allowing them to both decide who's on the platform and what they get to say, protect the speech of everybody under the First Amendment. And then also with the recommendation algorithms, we need to see what exactly we are being recommended and why. We need to know what the weights are on the recommendation algorithm, because I know from doing my own research as a software engineer in Silicon Valley that at the time Facebook, but now Meta, they hired multiple psychologists and psychiatrists to come up with different types of recommendation algorithms, and they chose the one not that made excuse me, they did not choose the recommendation algorithm that made everybody feel good and happy and have a sense of community. They chose to implement the recommendation algorithm that made everybody feel fearful and angry and outraged, because that addicts us to the screen to continue to come back and continue to scroll. And therefore, they're able to show us more ads to be able to maximize their profit. So I think we need to have somebody who understands technology to be able to regulate it effectively, not to avoid innovation, but to put some safety mechanisms in there so that we are not at the detriment of these companies' desire to maximize their profit.
And
I would
just to help some of the senior citizens out there, they're thinking, oh,
absolutely.
this is a youth issue, but it's
It is
not a
not.
youth issue. It's a free speech issue, but it's also a system that protects these big corporations like the insurance companies, the
Yes.
pharmaceutical companies that are charging so much money that are not providing the health care that we need. There's so many seniors out there that can't get the health care that they need. There's some that have great health care through their businesses and corporations, but these systems are suppressing the ability of people to elevate their concerns to a level where something will get done. Why hasn't Sean Kasten done anything about the insurance industry? It's
Exactly.
costing an arm and a leg. United Healthcare doesn't even they pay you pay so much money to a healthcare company like United, and you can't get the healthcare that you need. It's
And
terrible.
United Healthcare is an example of a company using artificial intelligence to deny people's claims without
Right.
even having a human being look it over. Your healthcare is being denied by this artificial intelligence. That should be regulated. That needs to be regulated. I don't know why Sean Casten isn't able to say that.
Well, he doesn't
I'm for,
understand it the way you
he
do.
doesn't understand
You
it
understand
exactly.
the technology. You're bringing an understanding of this stuff, these algorithms to the issues and making the connection. Because I'm telling you, a lot of people don't understand, especially the
Yeah.
seniors. They
Sure.
don't
And
understand the connection to the technology, how it's hurting them. And they
yes.
think they're separate. They're not separate at all.
And I can also say for the senior population that right now there's a phone scam that is very popular where people will use an artificial voice of somebody that is in your family because it's very easy to recreate the voice of somebody when it comes to it's not perfect, but if you're not familiar with
Right.
artificial intelligence and fake voice, you could be duped where somebody from your family it sounds like they're calling you begging for money because they're in a terrible situation and then all of a sudden you've been swindled out of thousands of dollars and the
Right.
government's not there to help you because they can't do anything. So we
That
need to prevent these scams from taking advantage of the average citizen, the elderly citizen in this country because
I I was going to say, I remember interviewing Dick Durbin once, and he told me that the banks control Washington, D.C. They own us, he said. That
sure.
was his quote. And one of the worst things about the banks is when a scammer goes to a bank and steals your property, the bank is not held responsible for giving your property away. They don't ask for an ID. They just say, oh, there's some documents that were signed. They
Yeah.
give the money away to some scammer. And instead of holding the bank responsible or the mortgage company responsible, they hold the homeowner responsible, who now has to pay a $80,000 debt on a loan that was scammed on them. There's
Yeah.
got to be a way to make the health insurance companies, the banks, responsible for the things that happen in their industry, even the phone companies. I
Yeah.
don't understand with today's technology how they don't know who these scammers are and why
Oh,
can't
they
they
do.
stop them?
They know. And the
But they're
reason
making
that they
money,
don't
right?
stop them, the reason they don't stop them is the same reason that Twitter allows bots to remain on the platform. They have the technology to get rid of them, but they don't because it drives engagement. Because the bots that reply to your tweets with an outrageous statement is going to make you stay on Twitter longer to reply and to check to see if you got a reply again. And you're going to be shown more ads. And same with the phone calls. They pay a business, premium to make all the phone calls. So they know exactly who's scamming and who isn't. And the reason that they are not forced to protect the average American is because they are making huge campaign donations to the people who could regulate them.
Give us a summary in these. We got a few more minutes left.
Sure.
Give us a summary of why people should vote for you. What are the issues that you're going to do? What are the top issues? The difference that you believe you can make in Congress representing the 6th district in the west, south, and west suburbs of Chicagoland.
Sure. So you should vote for me, Joey Ruzovich, for Illinois District 6 congressional race, because I'm a software engineer and I'm very capable of handling the moment that we face with technology and artificial intelligence. I'm very knowledgeable about the issues worldwide and locally, and I will be a strong moral voice for what America does in the foreign policy realm. I think we are currently experiencing a crisis in America, both economically and morally, and we need strong leaders with a vision for the future and a plan to implement it to be able to take on both the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment to implement it for the American people.
All right. My guest is Joey Ruzevich, and he is running for Congress in the 6th District, challenging Sean Kasten, who we've tried to work with him in the district. He hasn't responded. You just don't see his name. Your name's going to be out there, right? And when you're elected,
Absolutely. I'll be out there. I plan to continue to make connections in the community. My tagline is one of us for all of us because I am born and raised in Orland Park, in the community, in the district. I know these people. I grew up with them. I played sports with them. I went to movies with them, concerts. I plan to continuously be visible in the district, talking to people, hosting town halls, never kicking anybody out or pre-screening questions like Sean does. I'm happy to be challenged on my beliefs and my stances. And if the base is telling me that I'm wrong, I will listen.
and your website is Joey for Congress, the number four, joey4congress.com. And I want to point out that he attended Brother Rice High School. He went to Moraine Valley Community College. He finished his computer science degree at Loyola University in New Orleans and on an athletic scholarship. You got a diverse thing, and really, I want those seniors. I know the Arabs who are listening, and the Muslims, and the Jewish community that supports the end to this violence are going to support you. But I want the seniors to understand that your knowledge about artificial intelligence and computers is actually going to help them because artificial intelligence and computers are what's causing their costs to go up
Yes.
for healthcare, for insurance, for the economy. So it's very important. So if they get a chance, please go to joey4congress.com. Joey for number four for Congress. Use the number four when you do it. Joey4congress.com. Joey, listen, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to following you in this election and sharing your information with my readers.
Thank you, Ray. It was a pleasure. Check out the Facebook page for events, meet and greets. I'd love for you to come out and ask me your questions.
We'll do that. All right. Thank you so much, Joey.
All right. Take care, Ray.